Here is my research discovery project, Monet's Life and Home. Monet was born on November 14th, 1840 and died on December 5th, 1926. He was the founder of French Impressionist painting and is known for a series of paintings, and he's relevant to this class because he influenced abstract artists like Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko, and influenced Fauvism artists like Henri Matisse and Andre Derain, and even influenced music like the composer Claude Debussy. And here are his earliest paintings. You can see it was very traditional, especially the top one. He met his mentor, Eugene, and he taught him how to paint and paint plein air. And he was in his early 20s around this time. Later on in his life, he had his family and they rented a house starting with 2 acres, and there was a barn, and that became his studio in this small garden. And over the years he grew his garden and his house and just created it into this beautiful place that inspired him. Here's a photo of his garden at the top and 2 of his paintings at the bottom. Monet said, "My garden is my most beautiful masterpiece," and you can obviously tell that gardening was the central in his life, and he had love for all kinds of flowers and plants. And around his water garden, he had water lilies, willows, peonies, bamboo, and wisteria that would usually hang over his bridge. Another thing Monet said is, "It took me a long time to understand my water lilies. I grew them without thinking of painting them, and then all of a sudden I had the revelation of the enchantment of my pond, and I took up my palette." And you can see the 2 paintings at the bottom is the same spot in his water garden, but different times of the day, and I just find that gorgeous. He was enchanted by all the times of the day and all the seasons, and he loved painting them. Here's another example of his water lilies. This is probably one of my favorites. Very loose brushwork, and some shapes are abstract, even though they imply something like a reflection of a tree or lily pads. Here's more examples of his water lilies. My favorites of his series, especially the one on the top right. It's like a night scene. Here's more examples of his garden compared to his paintings. The left is his bridge, and the bottom left is a painting of his bridge, and you can see top right his garden, and bottom right how he saw his garden in his day. And throughout his home, he has rooms filled with Japanese watercolors. And you can see here how inspired he was by the Japanese culture, and you can see on the left that portrait he did of that woman. And then similar to Japanese culture, how they're deeply rooted and admire nature, Monet lived life a similar way, and his small pond and water garden were also Asian influenced, and his bridge was a Japanese style bridge. And this is one of his paintings, Impression Sunrise. I love this painting, very simplified and compressed, and then the orange just pops. Here are more of his famous paintings. And this is Monet's later work. He got cataracts, so he couldn't see as well, but you can see in this painting that he still kept painting despite the cataracts, and even though his vision was blurry, this is still a beautiful painting of his wisteria above his bridge. And these are his latest work when he really couldn't see, and yet without the titles I can tell where these are in his garden, like the left, the Japanese bridge, and the right, his rose path. And I can also see by color palette and everything how that really inspired Cubist and Fauvism abstract artists. And here are my citations. Thank you.